It's nice to be outside actually. It's been a crappy few days weather-wise. It's still difficult getting out and about and recording a few thoughts, which is ideally how I'd like to be doing this today, but the wind's just too strong. It'd probably be even too strong to talk in the garden for any length of time. But I've had a hell of a week, I really have. Just so many tears. I'm beginning to realise that the toxins below the surface in my life are beginning, you know, like toxins in the skin. What do? They bubble to the surface when they're ready, and there's a big juicy spot for you to squeeze. And you know, I feel like that about my my psyche, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it, my mind. Beginning to kind of realise I'm at the beginning of a journey. You know, a corner has been turned recently. Ever since my daughter left on Sunday, I've just felt absolutely wretched. Quite often that is a catalyst for facing up to things on a week-to-week basis, not on a sort of complete basis. And yeah, I always find it very difficult saying goodbye to her. It's not for long, you know. Within a couple of days, I'm looking forward to seeing her again. It's really not an issue, but it's symbolic, and I don't need to make excuses why I miss my beloved daughter. You know, I look forward to seeing her every day of the week. But I just, how do you put it? There are things in my life, all right, that transpired 5 years ago, a year and a half ago, 18 months. And that's when they happened. But I've had so much happen in such a short amount of time that I've had to sort of subconsciously categorise it all. And this week, with the amount of just tears that have been rolling down my cheeks, I realise it's coming to the surface now. It's finally time where I'm obviously turning some kind of corner where I'm ready in some way, shape or form to move forward a little bit. But I'm very aware of the fact that, and I'm confident in this, that's another thing that's changed. I'm very confident in how I feel about this, is that I'm at the beginning of a journey. Just because things happened 5 years ago, 2 years ago or 18 months ago doesn't mean that was the beginning of the journey. That was the event. You know, like Chernobyl exploded in 86 and 20 years later people developed cancer. You know, it's a grim analogy, I know, but, you know, the event was the... I don't need to... Why do I need to... I've got to credit people with more intelligence. You know what I mean? Things happen to me. And just because they happened 20 years ago doesn't mean that I've dealt with them. I'm beginning to deal with it now. God... do you know what I think that this comes from the past with regards to the internet and YouTube and everything, where if I, in the early days when I used to talk about contentious stuff, where I would get all sorts of people watching me, you know, some of my early videos used to get sort of 10 to 20,000 views sometimes. Hard to believe now, when it was all about conspiracy theory. And I learnt to always say, yes, I know there are people who are worse off. Yes, I know that in 1942 this happened and it was slightly worse than 43. You know, I got very used to covering my backside and quite frankly, sometimes just dealing with trolls and idiots. And I don't really get it anymore. But I still try and overcompensate and make things overly complicated to try and make them easier to digest. And I just don't need to do that, you know? I quite often have to watch videos back just to see if I didn't go any, you know, sometimes all right, because there's a multitude of things I record, sometimes kind of privately when I'm with my daughter and everything, that just go on sort of private social media that I share with my family. And I do watch through videos when I edit them sometimes to make sure I haven't put anything in that I shouldn't, you know. And, you know, I usually make a lot of sense, and the boring waffling on, explaining why I'm explaining something, God, and I'm doing it again now, you know. But, yeah, I've been places, you know. I've been places with regards to my life in the last 5 years. It's been a journey which is filled with wonder, had more than its liberal sprinkling of pain, and I just feel like, you know, that the toxins are bubbling to the surface now. And yeah, it just manifested itself with loads of crying this week. Feels good. You know, there's absolutely nothing I like more than a good cry, just as much as I like a really good laugh. I miss that. I miss laughing. I used to laugh a lot in my life, and I don't so much anymore. It's been a couple of occasions with my daughter. Once where we were going through pictures that even recently were very sad and had tragedy sort of attached to them, and she was editing them and putting big noses on people and stuff like that. And my God, we were laughing. And there was one night where she was making some assertion about something or other, and both of us. She's got a brilliant. She's only 9 years old, but she has got such a wonderful sense of the absurd. And she's a person who doesn't mind mocking herself and can see how ridiculous we all are, including herself. She's a great soul to be around. But yeah, she deserves more of the joy and laughter, and I'll go as far as saying so do I. You know, I don't often bestow gifts that I feel I deserve upon myself, but I've had a fucking hard time. I really have. And it's not to take away. Like I've said, you know, here I go again apologising for other stuff that I needn't, but this isn't to take away from other people who've been through things at the same time and in the same way as me. You tell your story, I'm telling mine. I'll quite happily represent people. You know, I like to think that maybe I do represent every man sometimes with the stories that I tell. The last thing I want to do is add to the plethora of ego and self-absorption that the internet seems to offer people. You know, a good 90% of people who create any content whatsoever are just me. And I'm no different to that, but I do hope that the intent, which is strong in me, for people to just recognise it. I want to be recognised. You know, I don't want to be placated, or I don't want people to pander to me or anything like that, but I do think that my story is so average and so common, unique to me, but the parameters of it are just so common. They're a real every man, every woman story. So many people have hit in some seemingly insurmountable odds and tragedies in their life, and joy and wonder at the same time. You know, so we've all been there, and you know, I've got the ability to pretend that I haven't got a filter to let it all out. You know. It's funny that so many people have described me in the past of saying, "Oh, he's just that kind of bloke. He's got no filter." You think, no, it's all a massive overcompensation. You know, were I a different person, I'd be fitting Carlos Fandango super wheels to my car and insisting that I'm cooler than you. You know, just by what I've purchased and what I own over you, I've just got an intelligence that puts me elsewhere in that sort of bracket, and I just pretend that I'm a whole lot more open than I truly am. One of the big things that was an issue in my last relationship was how much of a closed book I am. I know there are some of you, a couple of you spring to mind, who are probably thinking, yeah, well, I've known that for years. I've seen through you. And I find that funny. I think that those of you who've watched me for years, me, wonderful me, probably see the difference in me these days. You know, and it's one of those things that you can't buy, steal or borrow, and you can't kid certain people into saying I'm a different guy to the one you met, say, 10, 11 years ago, when this was, you know, when I was in my heyday doing this. I'm a very different guy, and I've been a lot of different places. Anyway, God bless.